you'd stand with me, Mark chapter 6, beginning at verse 17. Mark chapter 6, verse 17 through verse 25. Interesting story here in the Bible. If you don't have your Bibles with you, it does appear on the screen. The Bible says, for King Herod himself had given orders to have John the Baptist arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. Y'all got that, right? He married the woman who had been married to his brother. Sound like a soap opera, right? For John had been saying to Herod, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him. But she was not able to because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and a holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came on his birthday. Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guest. The king said to the girl, ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And he promised her with an oath, whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, what shall I ask for? The head of John the Baptist, she answered. At once, the girl hurried in to the king with the request, I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be unto God. Amen. You may be seated. I want to preach today from this topic, maximizing your moments. Maximizing your moments. Turn to your neighbor and say, will you maximize your moments? In the year 2009, a new reality show appeared on ABC that has garnered national and international popularity. The show is called The Shark Tank, and its goal is to place entrepreneurs in front of millionaires in order to convince them to invest in their idea. Has anybody ever seen this show called The Shark Tank? It comes on now, I believe, on Friday nights. But this show lets people come in with any idea they have, and they're standing there before millionaires, people who have built businesses. They're standing before them, and they have just a few minutes to present their idea. You see, they only have a short period of time to present to those who have the resources to take their business to the next level. And they've got to use this short window of opportunity in the best way. If you've watched the show, you've seen that some of them leave with $1 million deals that change their lives. They leave the Shark Tank. They're excited. They're high-fiving. They're excited now that they have taken advantage of this opportunity. But others leave hearing 4 words, better luck next time. Essentially, they leave hearing that they did not maximize their moment. You see, as they're coming onto the scene, onto the set in the Shark Tank, those are the words or the question that echoes in my mind. I ask myself, will they maximize their moment? The show catches my attention, church, because it highlights a similar pattern in our own lives today. You see, whether or not we realize it, daily we are presented with moments that are pregnant with possibility. Daily, we are given moments that God wants to use us, and he wants to use in us to create major change in this world. The question is not whether opportunity will knock. The question is, will you be ready when it does? In the text for today, we find this interesting story about the execution of John the Baptist. And Mark is narrating this story about the life of Jesus, and he tells us about the execution of John the Baptist. Now, I want to use this text as an application for our lives, that as we look at the life of the daughter of Herodias, as we look at her life and this opportunity that she has, I want to show how she mismanages the opportunity she has. I want to show how in every aspect she does not maximize her moment, and she misses out on a phenomenal offer. The overall meaning of this text, though, if we're studying it from a biblical perspective, the overall meaning is this: following Christ is going to cost you something. Somebody ought to say amen. Tell your neighbor it's free, but it ain't cheap. You see, salvation is a free gift of God. He has given it to us, and we can accept it freely, but it cost Jesus Christ his life. Not only did it cost Christ his life, but it also cost you and I our sacrifice of discipleship. That means when we follow Christ, it's actually going to cost us something. Mark, he places this story in between two miracle stories. And the reason why I believe is this: he wants us to know that sometimes God is going to be moving in our lives, and it's going to seem like God is doing miracle after miracle. Sometimes God is going to be moving in mighty ways, but there are other times when following Christ is going to cost us our lives. It's getting quiet in the house. Somebody in here can be honest enough to testify and say, you know what, Pastor? I've been through some things since I've been following Jesus. Somebody can testify and say, it hadn't been all, I just need a one witness in the house who can say, it hadn't been all easy since I've been following the Lord. I've been through some struggles and some trials, and the reason is that following Christ will cost us something. But just because we have everything to gain doesn't mean we have nothing to lose. We've got everything to gain when we follow Christ, but there are still things that we lose. The text says that John the Baptist lost his life. He was a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. He prepared the way for Jesus to come, but he ended up losing his life. He gets brutally murdered in this text because following the Lord might even cost us our lives. This execution of a Christ follower reminds us of another senseless massacre of Christians just weeks ago in Charleston, South Carolina. It reminds us, it jarred my memory when I read it. When I read about John the Baptist losing his life, I thought about those 9 folks in Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina, who had no idea as they walked in the prayer meeting that they were not going to walk back out. You see, though, listen, these 9, though, they did not lose their lives because they were Christian, even though some might suggest that. They lost their lives because they were black. They were massacred because our world still harbors hate. And as our young folks get ready to go off to college, we still got to make sure you understand that the world we live in still harbors hate and racism. Now, I don't want this to discourage you. I don't want this to intimidate you, but you must leave understanding the world that we live in. Racism is not simply rearing its ugly head once in a while. No, it is producing the fruit of systems that have been left unaddressed. Am I making any sense here? It's producing the fruit. You see, when there are seeds planted, if those trees are not cut down, they will continue to produce fruit. Some might say this event was just an anomaly. It was something crazy that never happens. No, this is the fruit of systems that have not been corrected. Systems that create cycles of poverty in our world. Systems where people profit off of putting people in prison. Did you realize that? People make money. There are people who make money when other folk go to jail. Systems that celebrate symbols of oppression. And these 9 were not murdered because they were Christian. It's because they were black. Somebody say, but God. Say it again. Say, but God. Even though they were not murdered because they were Christian, God has allowed their Christian faith to shine light in the darkness. Somebody ought to say amen. how else could a woman whose mother has just been murdered a few days ago stand before the man who killed her and say, I forgive you? How else could that happen? The only way that happens is because the love of Jesus Christ and his light is stronger than the darkness in the world. It can only happen because John, in the Gospel of John, says the light shines in the darkness and the darkness cannot overcome it. John the Baptist, just like these 9, is executed. And this interesting story causes us to ask the question, am I maximizing my moments? Let me give you a little bit of background here. King Herod was a ruler in the Roman Empire. He was married to a woman who used to be married to his brother. And John the Baptist said, you know you're wrong, right? That's what he told him. He said, you know you're wrong, right? And Herod knew he was wrong, but he didn't do anything about it. And so his new wife said she wanted him killed. But Herod said, nah, John, he's a holy man, so I'm not going to mess with him. So what happens is on Herod's birthday, his stepdaughter, her daughter, comes in and she dances and she says, or Herod says to her, anything you want, I give it to you. And here she asked for the head of John the Baptist. The question that I ask myself is, did she really maximize this moment? And what lessons does God want to teach us about maximizing the moments in our lives? The first thing that we learned today, if we're going to maximize the moments in our lives, if you and I are going to be all that God has called us to be, the first thing we must do is we must understand the importance of every moment. Turn to your neighbor and say, every moment matters. Come on, say it again. Every moment matters. Verse 22 tells us that this young woman, she came in to perform on the king's birthday. She was clearly gifted because the Bible says all the guests enjoyed the performance. But she did not understand what might come as a result of this moment. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? She thought she was going to dance and leave. She thought this was just another event on her calendar. She didn't realize that this moment was pregnant with possibility. She didn't realize that the king was going to say to her, ask me anything you want and I will give it to you. You see, part of the key to maximizing your moment in life is understanding that every moment holds potential for breakthrough. Some of y'all are missing this thing. God wants you and I to understand that every moment holds potential for breakthrough. There was a man named Dr. Benjamin Mays, the former president of Morehouse College in Atlanta. He was famous for quoting a poem about a minute. He said, I only have just a minute. Only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it. Give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute. But eternity is in it. You see, what Dr. Mays understood is that every moment of life is important. And young folks, I need you to understand that every moment in your life, every moment in your day, you've got decisions to make. You've got temptations to face. And God wants us to understand that each moment is important. You see, if I only prepare when I think the moment is special, then I'll miss out on too many special moments. For example, somebody came in today saying, well, let me just check church off my list. I know you can't raise your hand for that. Somebody came in and said, you know what, that's just what I do. I go to church on Sunday, so let me just go and check it off my list. But there was somebody else who came in saying, I'm going to get a breakthrough today. Somebody else came in saying, I'm going to meet with God today, and his power is going to impact my life. And I want you to ask, who do you think got the blessing? Who do you think is going to receive from God? Surely not the one who was just checking off a list, but the one who said every moment is important. I can remember when I first got to college, there was an orientation for all of the African American students. And the dean of African American affairs, he stood before us and he was encouraging us. And then he said this. He said, look to your left, look to your right. And he said, one of them may not be here next semester. Now, he was not trying to discourage us, church. But what he was saying is that somebody here is not going to maximize their moment. He was saying somebody here is going to squander the opportunity that they have been given. And he's saying, I hope that it's none of you all, but if we're realistic about it, somebody's going to miss out on the important place where they stand. And I've come today to tell not just our teenagers, but everybody in the house that if we're not careful, we will miss out on the moments that God has placed in our lives. If we're not careful, we will miss out on the blessing he wants to bestow. And so we've got to hear him say to us, every moment matters. But my dean was saying, he was saying, make sure it's not you that misses out on this moment. And young folks, as you travel here in Pittsburgh or in Pennsylvania or even all across the country, God says, make sure you understand that every moment matters. The second thing that you and I must understand if we're going to maximize the moments in our lives, not only must we understand that every moment matters or every moment is important, we also must prepare for God's open door. Turn to your neighbor and say, get ready. Come on, say, get ready. In the text here, the Bible says that once the king asked, he says, tell me whatever you desire, the young lady leaves and goes to get her mother. Y'all see that? She said, hold up, let me go get my mom's. And the reason why is because she was not ready for the opportunity that was presented to her. Y'all are missing this thing. You see, when you go to college, you ain't always going to be able to just come and go give my ma, I need you to write this paper for me, ma. I need you to, no, you got to be ready for the opportunity as it comes to you. It's not enough just to recognize that every moment matters, but I also got to prepare for the doors that God is going to open. Now, here's the question. Are you prepared for the doors that God is getting ready to open in your life? I'm not just talking to the teenagers. I'm talking to everybody in the house. Are you ready for the doors that God is getting ready to open in your life? Because God says he's calling us. If we're really going to maximize our moments, we got to be ready when he moves. On December 2nd, 2012, your Pittsburgh Steelers, they traveled to Baltimore to play the Baltimore Ravens. Hey, I'm just telling the truth. Can I preach the truth up in here? 2 weeks prior, the Ravens had beaten the Steelers. And I was looking forward. I was excited about knocking the Steelers completely out of playoff contention. I know I don't get too many amens on that. It might be one amen in the house. Come on, where you at? Where you at? I got one in the balcony. Amen. I see you, my brother. I was looking forward to it. And then to make matters worse for the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger was out injured. Now, I don't want to see nobody get hurt. But I can't say I was mad he wasn't playing. I wasn't mad. He wasn't playing. Not only was Ben Roethlisberger hurt, but the backup quarterback at that point, who was Byron Leftwich, he was also injured. And so therefore, in that game, the third option or the third string quarterback, Charlie Batch, was scheduled to start the game. Now I said, hey, I wasn't mad it was Charlie. I said I'd take anybody but Ben, and I thought we had a good chance to knock the Steelers all the way out. The game was tied at 20. There were only a few minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and Charlie Batch, Lord have mercy, Charlie Batch from Homestead, Pennsylvania, led the Steelers on a 60-yard drive, and then they kicked a field goal as the final seconds ran off the clock to win the game. Lord have mercy. Yeah. Now, while the game didn't end like I wanted it to, and all the folk who didn't text me 2 weeks before when we had beat the Steelers, they found their phone all of a sudden, right? Though the game didn't end like I wanted it to, I still heard the Lord speaking. And he wasn't telling me to be a Steeler fan. That's not what he said. This is what he said. He said, this is what happens when you prepare for the doors I'm opening. Somebody's missing that. You see, Charlie Batch was not the first option. He was not even the second option. He was the third option. But because he was ready when the doorway opened up, he was able to have good success. And God says, because you are ready, because you're prepared when I open up the door, that's when you'll be able to have better success than you ever thought you would. Here's what the Lord told me to tell somebody. This is what he says. He says, I'm going to open up a door for you this week. He didn't say next month. He's not saying next year. He's saying, I'm going to open up a door for you this week. And the question is not whether or not I'll open one. The question is, will you be ready when I open it? When you look back over your life, you realize God's been opening up doors every week of my life, but I just haven't always been ready to walk through them. And so God is saying, will you maximize your moment? Now, let me help you out. The doorway he's going to open may not always be the doorway you want him to open. Lord have mercy. Sometimes we saying, God, please open door number 3. He's saying, well, how about you walk through door number 1 first? We saying, God, I want you to open up a door for some new material things. And he's saying, I want to open up a door for a new mindset, because if I give you the material thing without the new mindset, you're going to mess around and lose what I just gave you. God, for some of us, watch this, it's going to get tight here. Some of us, God's saying this week, I'm going to open up a door for you to forgive somebody. Lord have me. You say, oh, I didn't know that was the door. But God is saying, I'm going to open up a door for you to forgive somebody. I'm going to open up a door for you to overcome a temptation you've been struggling with. And he's saying, it's not a question of whether or not I'm going to open it. The question is, will you recognize it and walk through it? Sometimes we miss the doors that God is opening because we focused on the wrong doors. God says, I'm going to open up a door for forgiveness. I'm going to open up a door for growth. I'm going to open up a door for strengthening your marriage. I'm going to open up a door for building new relationships. I'm going to open up a door for a college education. I'm going to open up a door for something you never imagined. And the question is, will you walk through it? God says to us today that he's going to open up some doors in our lives. Not 2016, not December, this week. And will we have the spiritual eyes to see what the Lord is doing and then walk by faith? If we're going to maximize our moments, first, we must understand that every moment matters. Secondly, we must prepare to walk through God's open door. But thirdly and finally, we must make sure we are seeking to satisfy the Savior. Turn to your neighbor and say, who you trying to please? Come on. I need you to ask him again. Wake him up, because somebody might be asleep. Wake him up and say, who you trying to please? You see, Verse 25 in this text, it tells us that Herod's stepdaughter, she followed the advice of her mother, and she came back and said, I want the head of John the Baptist. Now, when you understand the scenario, you understand her whole goal is to satisfy her mother, even if her mother's desires are wicked and evil. Y'all seeing this? her mother has wicked and evil desires, but this young girl is seeking to satisfy her mother. Now, let me take a pause here and talk to the parents a little bit. If our children are going to maximize their moments, then we got to make sure we are leading them by example. I'm worried. I'm worried about what kind of life that Herodias' daughter got into if her mother is starting her off like this. She said, go ahead and ask him to cut somebody's head off. You see, she's not leading her in a way by example. And so if we're not truly striving to honor God, what makes us think our children will? I know we're excited. We're excited about these who are gathered here, getting ready to go on to the next stage in their lives. But God says, as they go on to the next stage, you've also got to demonstrate how they should live. You see, the issue here is that if I'm going to maximize my moments, I must make sure I'm trying to satisfy the right person. Much of our culture today, church, is built upon acceptance. We want to be accepted. Anybody want to be accepted? I want to be accepted. We want to be accepted, but we go to the extremes where we want to be accepted in groups at school and at groups at work and every part of this society. And so we begin to determine our value by whether or not we got accepted into certain groups. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? The problem is their acceptance of us is based on our alignment with their values. Now, y'all got to walk with me here. You got to stay with me, because they only want to accept you, or they only want to accept us if we align with their values. And so what happens is, somewhere along the way, we don't realize that we have exchanged our values and our foundation for the values of those folks we're trying to satisfy and we're trying to please. And then when we look in the mirror, we realize we ain't who we thought we were, because we got so caught up in trying to be who they wanted us to be. See, I hope some of our teens are hearing this, because everybody wants you to be who they want you to be. They want you to look like them. They want you to dance like them. They want you to value what they value. But then one day you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to say, who am I? Because we've exchanged their values for our own. And so the question has to be asked, who am I really trying to please? Who am I trying to satisfy? Because the often quoted cliche is true that we seek things that we really don't need, and we buy them with money that we really don't have to impress people that we really don't like. We really don't like them, right? We really ain't had the money for it anyway. But we bought it because we knew they was going to like us better if they saw us in it. And I gotta discourage you when you get ready for this next chapter of life. Don't get caught up in what everybody else has or what everybody else wants you to be. Because at the end of the day, we've got to ask ourselves, who am I really trying to please? We now live in a culture where my self-esteem is connected to my social media accounts. Come on now. My self-esteem is connected to my Facebook and my Instagram account. What do you mean, Pastor? This means I'm no longer posting information to share with my friends, but I'm posting information to get validation from people I don't even know. There are some folks who base their self-esteem on how many likes they got on a picture or a post. And so the question has to be asked, who am I trying to satisfy? If my only worth is in those people who might like my picture or who might like my post, I got to ask myself, who am I really seeking to satisfy? And watch this, who is really worth all my effort? And what have they done for me to deserve all this effort? There are a lot of folk we trying to please. There are a lot of folk we trying to satisfy who really, when we come down to it, ain't done nothing for us. Now, instead of wasting my time trying to satisfy those who will only accept me when I look like them, why shouldn't I say I'm going to spend my time trying to satisfy and honor the one who accepted me just as I am? I wish I had a witness in here. Somebody who can testify and say, Jesus didn't wait until I had it all together. He didn't wait till I could say I was perfect. He didn't wait until I dotted every I and crossed every T. Jesus didn't ask me for my resume. In fact, he already knew all my stuff. And he said, I'll still take you. But the good news is this: even though he took me as I was, he didn't leave me like I was, because he loved me too much to let me stay the way I was. There's somebody here who can say, I give God praise. I know I'm not perfect, but he didn't leave me like I was when I came to him, but he picked me up and he turned me around. He poured his love into my heart, and now I'm better. I'm better because of him. You see, that's why the songwriter would say, he looked beyond my faults and he saw my needs. And so if I'm really going to seek to satisfy somebody, then shouldn't it be the one who gave it all for me? If I'm ever going to maximize my moments, the only way it's going to happen is if I seek to satisfy the one who has purpose for my life. If I seek to satisfy the one who breathed breath into my lungs, then I might be able to make it one more day. Young folks, y'all are getting ready to embark on a new adventure. And there are going to be a lot of folks who are seeking your attention. There are going to be a lot of folks, for everybody in the house, day in, day out, who are seeking our attention. But God says the focus of our hearts ought to be satisfying the one who is able to deliver us. That's why Jesus would say, seek first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, and all these other things. Come on, somebody say things. All these other things will be added to you. I believe that if we would seek to satisfy the Savior, we'll maximize the moments in our lives. Church, the only way we can do that is if we give our lives to the Lord. Yes. And I don't just mean in salvation, but I mean every day. We say, God, I'm putting my life in your hands and I'm giving myself away so that you might get the glory out of me. And when you do that, I believe that God will maximize our moments. I believe right now that God is going to open some doors in your life. But the only way you're going to see him this week is if you give yourself away. If you seek after him more than you seek after other people or other things. And when we give ourselves away to him, we'll see transformation that we never could have imagined. Let's look to the Lord and pray.